So Juan Guaido, right? He's attempted to oust Nicolas Maduro yesterday. May Day is coming up. Today is May Day, and there'll be probably more demonstration. But so far, this has not succeeded. It may already have failed. We just don't know where it's going to go yet. And that is bad. It is bad for Venezuela. It's bad for us. Guaido obviously is the socialist leader. He was through the Constitution of Venezuela, he was legally appointed the leader of the country. Nicolas Maduro will not let go of his hold on power. He was elected in a total fraud election. Maduro is just a dictator. That's all he is. Cuba backed by Cuban thugs who has taught his people how to oppress the people. And of course, backed, as always, as everything Cuba does, backed by Russia, backed by Putin, which is now starting trouble in our hemisphere. So Guaido came out, and Guaido is supported by all the good guys, America and Europe, and all the right people support him. All the bad guys, China, Russia, North Korea, they support Maduro. Of course they do, because they're thugs as well. So Guaido comes out, and he's got some soldiers behind him, and he says, the soldiers are with me. Come and defect. He's calling out to the soldiers to come and defect. Some of them seem to have some of the security forces that are backing Maduro up seem to not be that loyal. A prisoner was released, and it's all kind of confusing. And of course, the people took to the streets, and Maduro answered by sending out his troops, firing rubber bullets, firing real bullets, driving trucks, these armored vehicles over them, an absolute disaster. And, you know, this is Pompeo, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who, by the way, is really proving himself a very, very high-level appointment. So good for Donald Trump for putting Pompeo in there. He's doing an excellent job. Pompeo comes out and he says that Maduro was ready to leave. He was ready to escape to Cuba. He told Wolf Blitzer on CNN he was ready to escape to Cuba when the Russians talked him out of it and talked him into staying and keeping his boot heel on the throat of the Venezuelan people.
It's been a long time since anyone has seen Maduro. He had an airplane on the tarmac. He was ready to leave this morning, as we understand it, and the Russians indicated he should stay. We think the situation remains incredibly fluid. We know that there were senior leaders inside the Maduro government that were prepared to leave. They told us as much over the past few weeks, and we're convinced that the Venezuelan people are going to get their democracy back.
So, I mean, this is real stuff, because this is a communist threat. Yeah, it's a communist threat, basically, in our hemisphere. This is Putin moving up the line from Cuba into Venezuela. It's a genuine danger. And Trump tweeted out, he said, if Cuban troops and militia do not immediately cease military and other operations for the purpose of causing death and destruction to the Constitution of Venezuela, a full and complete embargo together with the highest level sanctions will be placed on the island of Cuba. Hopefully all Cuban soldiers will promptly and peacefully return to their island. So listen, and in Cuba, of course, is Putin too. I mean, basically, I mean, this is like back to the Cold War days, but that's what Putin is looking for. That's the kind of trouble he is trying to start. And Pompeo points this out. I mean, he says this is all about the Russians. This is cut 5.
Maduro is surrounded by Cubans and has been supported by Russians there in Venezuela. And we've told the Russians and we've told the Cubans that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to starve people. It's unacceptable to allow sick children not to be able to get their medicine. The nations of the region, the Lima Group, the Organization of American States are all demanding that we get democracy restored and that we get dignity back to this once great nation. It's a country that has the capacity for great wealth, and the United States is prepared to stand with the Venezuelan people, to support the interim government, to help a free and fair election take place, and then to build back this country.
And so, of course, the minute this happens, everybody starts worrying about American military intervention. Trump has said that is on the table. Of course, it has to stay on the table. You can't just say, I'm not going to do it, because then you lose all your threat power. And, you know, you hear the usual suspects on this start to complain. We shouldn't get involved. I believe Tucker Carlson was complaining about this. I mean, you know, Tucker is I like Tucker. He's a good guy. He's a really interesting voice. But I think that he does get a little bit you know, over worried about intervention. I am not a neocon. I am for as few foreign wars as possible. I think that George W. Bush, looking back, went overreacted, if that's possible, to 9/11, kind of created a plan too big for him to complete, and he ran it badly. If he had run it a little better, maybe it would have worked better. I don't know, but it went on too long. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for an invasion of Venezuela. But this is something you genuinely have to take seriously. This is Putin, as I keep saying, he's a gangster, and he kills journalists. He kills the opposition. He thrives on anti-Semitism. He thrives on anti-gay, on if you want to call it homophobia, on attacking people. This kind of mock religious attitude that he takes. He's just the KGB turned into the government of Russia. And to have him in our hemisphere, he's already expanded his hold in his area, but to have him moving on our area is a serious, serious threat. And so Wolf Blitzer, the thing that Blitzer said as well, he's got missiles in there. How could we ever invade? And this is Pompeo's response, his third cut.
The president has made very clear that all options are on the table. That certainly includes a military option. We're working to make sure that doesn't need to be the case, that we deliver this outcome for the Venezuelan people in a way that doesn't put life and limb at risk, and there's not violence. But I don't think anyone should be fooled that if the president makes that decision, if he chooses a military option, that the United States military has the capacity to execute that option.
Let me read you a story, brief story, from the BBC from 2011, okay? 2011, so we're talking 8 years ago, still under Chavez. Venezuela has brought a new gun law into effect which bans the commercial sale of firearms and ammunition. Until now, anyone with a gun permit could buy arms from a private company. Under the new law, only the army, the police, and certain groups like security companies will be able to buy arms from the state-owned weapons manufacturer and importer. The ban is the latest attempt by the government to improve security and cut crime ahead of elections in October. Okay, so as Chavez's plans, supported by Sean Penn and Oliver Stone and Michael Moore and all the rest, as they were leading the country into disorder, they said, well, we've got so much disorder, so much crime, we've got to ban guns because guns are causing the crime. You've never heard that before, right? Yeah, you hear it on MSNBC. But what do you hear on MSNBC now as they are reporting on Venezuela? Listen to this.
I think it has been surprising to a lot of people in Washington, in the administration at least, but this is taking longer than they thought, despite the sanctions, despite the pressure. With the help of Russia and other outside forces, Maduro is hanging on.
Not only hanging on, but he appears to still control the military. You have to understand, in Venezuela, gun ownership is not something that is open to everybody. So if the military have the guns, they have the power. And as long as Nicolas Maduro controls the military, he controls the country. And his supporters have tried to peacefully protest. They have gathered in large numbers. What we saw today when he met early this morning and stood there in front of those wearing uniforms appear to be rank and file members who may have switched their allegiance. We have seen over the recent months those who have switched their allegiance, but not en masse. We have not seen large numbers of the troops in Venezuela switching their allegiance from Nicolas Maduro to Juan Guaido.
MSNBC just reported that because the people have no guns, they have no power. Quoting him directly, right? Since Maduro has all the guns, he has all the power. And you think to yourself, gee, if only they had a constitution that said people had a right to bear arms so they could form militias in case, the government goes bad. But of course, that would never happen here because our government is filled with such wise, just freedom-loving people as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Vladimir Putin, God bless the devil, is basically giving us a course on freedom. He is showing us in front of the TV, he's showing us on TV why you need guns, why there's nothing benign about the attempts to take guns away, because it's the principle. You can have socialism without trucks running people over. If, for instance, you introduce it to countries like Europe, where people basically have aged out of freedom. They basically have gotten tired of being free. They just want to be taken care of. They want to be taken care of by the United States that protects them. It gives them the medicines that they want. And they don't understand, you never understand with socialism, that you are selling your future. You're selling your future. You hear Bernie Sanders talking about the corporations this and the corporations that. Well, the corporations give you your iPhones. The corporations give you your computers, your cars. All those things that you love come from the corporations. Corporations can get too powerful. Any power center needs to be controlled. That's true. But it's corporations that give you all these good things. And when you take their profits away, when you say that, no, your profits are ours to redistribute, you take away the inspiration and the desire and motivation to keep creating things. And so you don't know what you won't have. You don't know about the health care, the pills for your dementia that won't be there when you get old. You won't know about that because they just won't be there. It won't occur to you that, oh, if we hadn't had socialism, somebody would have invented that to make money. You know, you won't know about the invisible computer that would have gone in your ear and given you all the information in the world right to your brain. You won't know about that because it simply won't exist. Socialism takes your future away, and you need guns to keep it from happening, because if the government can get more power, it will. You know, I just want to end this by talking about the fact that, you know, you haven't heard a word from Bernie Sanders about Venezuela, and you haven't heard a word from AOC, because they know the principles at stake. They know what the principles are that are at stake. And the New York Times is playing this story way down for riots and demonstrations like that going on in our hemisphere. You know, it's really only Trump who's standing up against them, and let's hope he has the wherewithal to do it. I would love to see him turn this around and get Maduro out of there and put Guaido. I mean, look, Guaido is just a stepping stone to free elections. We can't ultimately have the say in how the Venezuelans govern themselves. They're going to have all kinds of problems in the wake of this failed state. But let us see if Trump can do what has to be done and force these clowns, these thugs, these Russian and Cuban thugs out of our hemisphere. They do not belong here.